Alright, so I have not seen this video. So this video is how your personality affects what you play. And this is called Psych of Play. So I've mentioned in the past, fairly recently, that I'm very interested in human psychology. I'm very, very interested in how people think and why people do the things that they do. So I came across this video randomly. It's a longer video. But because I'm interested in this topic, and I don't have many videos to show you, that the last video that we have for tonight is like a 2.5 minute video, so it'll be very, very short. But because, you know, we have this video right here, which really touches on a topic that I'm very, very fascinated by, I thought that we could watch it together and, you know, see what we think about it. And it has to do with video games. So I think since we all play video games here, we're all, you know, pretty geeky about our certain types of games that we play, I think maybe we can all walk away with something from this video. And yeah, just thought it'd be fun for us to check out. So it's a longer video, but you know, hopefully it's interesting enough that we can get through it all.
Turns out this video is actually pretty easy to write. In 2016, Dr. Jeremiah Appleton and his team ran a study where they would have gamers fill out surveys regarding their personality. They would agree or disagree with statements like, I have a colorful imagination when I am alone, I enjoy the company of others, I worry I am not accomplishing enough, or I feel the need to win even if it hurts someone else's feelings, etc., etc. All statements you can feel free to answer quietly to yourself if you like. Dr. Appleton then had the subjects report what video game genres they enjoyed the most. And in most cases, subjects that typically enjoyed JRPGs had more quiet, reserved personalities and often had serious doubts as to whether they had made the right decision or done the right thing in games and in life.
I can see
Those that typically enjoyed platformers and more fast-paced games like Doom often had a strong tendency to be critical of themselves. Fans of puzzle games like Tetris or Hue prefer a certain amount of change and variety in their everyday lives and become dissatisfied when governed by restrictions and limitations. The same goes for fans of Minecraft and other open-world sandbox games who also specifically have personalities that lend themselves to a great need for other people to like and admire them. And if you're finding these statements to feel accurate of your own gaming preferences and personality, quit that, because every word of what I just said was made up. Including that first line. This video is a royal bitch to make.
I bet. Oh, I bet. Good.
How does our personality affect what games we prefer playing?
All right.
It's a damn good question, and one that has been investigated by people much smarter than me. But before we dive into this, I'd like to make a couple of disclaimers and a couple of examples. Out of you. I didn't set that whole opening thing up just to screw with you, although I didn't necessarily not enjoy doing that. I did it to point out that personality psych is a slippery slope. If you happen to really find yourself believing what is said about personalities there, you fell victim to the Barnum effect, which is how psychics and horoscope writers stay in business. Ambiguous statements that can be true of pretty much anyone when presented specifically to you about you can very easily begin to feel true. Pair that with a little bit of confirmation bias, and suddenly everything we talk about today may lead you to believe that you are an incredibly creative person just because you put more hours into Persona 5 than your entire undergrad degree.
Okay, I think we can all agree that if you're playing Persona 5 Royal, you know, your connection to Persona games, I think, does not correlate with creativity. I think just because Persona games are visually creative, I can see why you made that line in the first place. Just because Persona's games are very stylish and fun and just creative as a whole, that wouldn't exactly guarantee that the person who's playing them would inherently be creative as a whole. I think we can all agree on that. It's just another JRPG. And, you know, various people play JRPGs.
I'm not judging, that's a self-burn, but I just want you to be aware. Watch your footing on this video and take it with a grain of salt. Alright, enough disclaimers. Let's dive into the tremendously fascinating world of personality. One more thing though, sorry. You should know that personality is not the most rock-solid field in psych. There are measures developed to try and capture our personalities, but between the changing of age and the changing of culture around us, who we are is ever shifting. Also, most research tends to be correlational, so what we're talking about today is tendencies and a snapshot of what we think we know. not laws. So again, grain of salt. And its intersection with game preference. If I asked you to give me a breakdown of your favorite types of games to play, you'd probably start by telling me some genres. You might even rattle off some titles. You put a lot of time into Ghost Runner. Maybe you get cheap thrills and fast-paced games like that in Mirror's Edge. Oh, you and your friends are still playing Animal Crossing. I respect it. You might enjoy the sensation of dunking on your friends, or maybe your dreams are just a little bit too peaceful and you like to go out of your way to ruin that whole thing. Maybe you tell me you like getting absorbed in a story like something seen in Xenoblade or Tsushima. Maybe your pants get tighter when you shave off a few seconds of your Portal speedrun, or when you finally unlock that last support for Dorothea. A fellow fan of the opera, I see. No matter your personal syllabus of titles or ways to play said titles, we can measure genre preference. But if I asked you to give me a breakdown of your personality, you'd probably talk in more circles than your buddy trying to get you to invest in Dogecoin. It's hard to get a true read on personality, but psychologists have come up with a few methods. And the one we'll be using today is the Big 5 personality traits developed by Lewis Goldberg.
All right, so thankfully, I know about the Big 5 personality traits, and the fact that he's referencing this is he's off to a great start. Like this, the Big 5 is the de facto means by which people can find out what their general personality is, and they're much more grounded in science than, for example, the Myers-Briggs, which many people know. It's very easily accessible in pop culture to use the Myers-Briggs methodology of like kind of like am I INFJ, am I ESTI, like you know, like that sort of thing. So that's very kind of pop culture-y, the Myers-Briggs stuff. But the Big 5 is actually grounded in research, actual studies, and very much should be your go-to if you truly want to get a better read on your personality.
The Big 5 traits are sort of the most accepted, replicable, and used measure in the world of psych today, and each trait essentially works on a sliding scale, with most people falling somewhere in the middle. Generally, personalities don't sit at the extremes, just closer to one end. Remember, we're ever-changing.
Okay, so, yeah, I would say sometimes they would fall in the middle, but the last time I assessed my personality, my level of neuroticism is extremely low. So obviously, like, you're not going to be like at the very low or at the very high, but generally speaking, my sense of neuroticism is relatively very low. I don't get upset, and I get worried about things, but I don't get particularly like irritated or upset very easily, and I'm very much in control of my emotions to a very high degree. So let's go on.
We'll dive more deeply into each individual trait as we get to some of the bigger points of the video, but just as an example, openness, to wildly oversimplify it, refers to our willingness and desire to seek out / think about new things. People with high openness tend to be very creative, enjoy trying new things, are extremely curious, and are happy with change. Those with low openness despise change. You won't catch them rearranging their room or changing their schedule much. They don't like new, and they don't like abstract ideas. Conscientiousness sort of deals with how organized you are. Do you pay attention to detail and strategize, or act on a whim? Agreeableness refers to our interest in others. Are we empathetic and helpful, or are we self-serving and oblivious to others? Neuroticism deals with emotional stability and how you handle stress, and I think you're already familiar with extroversion. At our core, we all land somewhere on each of these 5 scales. Maybe you're pretty low on the extroversion scale, but you are highly agreeable, so you really empathize with people, therefore you might enjoy a good emotional story, but don't care much for partaking in real-world human interaction. As an introvert, I can relate to you. Maybe you're highly conscientious, so you love games where you plan ahead and strategize, but due to your neuroticism, you often get stressed when you have to make a tough decision. Maybe you over-prepare for that mission or get choice paralysis when trying to decide on an outfit or a skill. This is all my speculation, by the way. I'm just trying to give you an idea of how your personality might affect how you approach titles. Luckily, though, we don't have to speculate much. There has been some remarkable work done here by one Dr. Nick Yee of Quantic Foundry.
Oh my gosh. Wow, this guy is referencing all the stuff that I reference. Holy shit. Like Quandric Foundry is like when I'm like, I've referenced Quandric Foundry for data and information about like gamer personalities multiple times. And it's so interesting the kind of research that they're doing as a company, as a group. And like it's so like what Quandric Foundry does to put gamers' habits and tendencies and preferences and such into actual data that can be measured is so cool. So cool. And he's referencing that, so that's another plus for this video.
In 2015, Yi and his team gathered data from over 140,000 gamers using their homegrown gamer motivation profile, which you can still take now if you like, and I recommend you do at some point. It's really eye-opening and fun. Link in the description. Pop it open in a new tab and take it after you finish this. From this data, they found that gamers typically play due to a combination of any of these 12 motivations. You might play to stretch your creative muscles, you might play to get wrapped up in a story or to feel like you're someone else. Some folks do it for the challenge, some folks do it for the power trip, many of you crave the community and the competition, and some of us just like to blow shit up. Likely though, we are all some combination of any of these. People are rarely so one-dimensional. And since most people exhibit multiple of these motivations when playing games, Yi and his colleagues used a little technique called multidimensional scaling for the data, which maps out the correlation between these variables. If two motivations are more correlated, they are put closer together, whereas motivations that are less correlated are placed farther apart. Meaning, since these two dots are close to each other, if you are really into gaming for destruction, you are likely also into it for excitement, but less likely to be into it for strategy. When you take a look at the full map from the data, you can get a better idea of what motivations are related. And you might see that you probably fall into one of these three clusters, or maybe even dip your toes into two of them, which is exactly what Yi and his team noticed. There were three higher level structures, three primary types of players that most motivation correlations fall under. Action social, which combines the love of fast-paced gameplay with player interaction. Immersion creativity, which combines the interest in stories, player expression, and exploration. And mastery achievement, which mixes the appeal of strategic gameplay, tough challenges, and chasing achievement. The discovery and power motivations are tricky. They don't really fit in just one cluster, and according to Yi, they sort of act as bridges between the three major groups. Meaning, if you identify with the immersion creativity cluster and the mastery achievement cluster, discovery likely really appeals to you. Now keep in mind, this is simply motivations we're talking about, not how personality affects them. But what's fascinating is that much like the Big Five personality traits, the gamer motivations mapping is consistent across several different regions and cultures, which could suggest that gaming motivations and personality are both in some ways universal for all of us, and furthermore could be related in some sort of consistent manner. As I was reading up on this and writing the script for this video, I realized that all that was left to do was find proof of this relationship. And as I embarked on this noble quest into the sweaty migraine-inducing DMV that is Google Scholar and try to find some research that could connect the two, I was surprised to find that Dr. Yi had already broken ground on that research, making my job a lot easier. God bless this man. Only a few weeks later, the good people over at Quantic gathered data from the gamers who filled out their gamer motivation profile and a Big Five personality test. They then analyzed the correlations between the participants' offline personality traits and their gaming motivations. Pretty much what I made up in the beginning of this video, but this time I'm not juicing your kiwis, Connor. They actually did this and did it correctly. And what they found was statistically significant correlations, meaningful connections that, based on the sample size, did not happen by chance. They stumbled upon the invisible strings that connect who we are to the experiences we love. The action social cluster, which contains the high motivations of excitement, competition, and community, were largely connected to high levels of extroversion. Now, extroversion is usually characterized by people as being outgoing or being good around others, but research supports that it's more accurately characterized by excitability, emotional expressiveness, cravings of excitement, and gaining energy in social situations. Not necessarily being good in them, but gaining something from it, even if it's simply competition or attention. Consider this. You don't have to like people to be an extrovert, and yet you may still gain something from being around them.
Yeah.
So you may very well choose to pick up fighting games because your extroversion makes you crave the competition, just as well as you may play action adventures for the constant excitement, or MMOs and social sims because you do actually like the people in your life and get something meaningful from kind interaction with others. Another correlation they found was between openness and the immersion creativity cluster. RPGs, sandboxes, open worlds, anything with a deep immersive story or a way to express creativity. Most players that enjoy these games tended to have high levels of openness, which, like we discussed earlier, is characterized by imagination and creativity. Folks high in this tend to have a broad range of interests, enjoy change, and are open to new and varied experiences, which may explain why these people can finish JRPGs even after weird interactions like,
You know, this is how I earn a living.
Huh? Really? I thought you were just doing it for fun.
I suppose some people do.
Hello, I'm some people. Nice to meet you.
I joke, but this is 100%
gosh.
me. I'm here for the story, and I don't care how weird things get. I'd be willing to bet that the Undertale fanbase is full of high openness people because, again, the trait is all about painting outside the lines, which is probably why it also correlates highly to the enjoyment of sandboxes like Minecraft and games with hefty customization like Monster Hunter World.
Okay, so I do want to comment really quickly on the bit about Undertale. He's absolutely right. That openness would definitely correlate with games such as Undertale and just RPGs in general. You know, not only is it just the engagement of the story and the interest of seeing a good story play out, but you know, like a lot of people, not everyone, but there are a number of people who have enjoyed Undertale, and I would say a good handful of those people are very, very inclined to, you know, LGBTQ proclivities. So, given that being the case, I would imagine that these people are either you know, LGBTQ themselves, or they are a intense supporter of those who are LGBTQ. So that's something I have observed. It just seems that a lot of people who have enjoyed Undertale, not all, but a good portion of them are generally in that box of, you know, in that category of generally not really fitting in any particular box. For whatever reason, like I don't want to get into the details of like why they may be in that box, but I've noticed that many people are typically in that box. They're not following conventional gender roles or anything of that nature. They're very much kind of outside of that. Ironically speaking, I have not played Undertale, and I've seen gameplay of Undertale, but I've not played it myself. But like, I wouldn't say that, like, it's interesting that my place in, you know, as a trans woman doesn't really like correlate with the idea of wanting to engage with things like Undertale. However, it is true that my personality is I'm a very open person who likes to learn new things. I'm very, very curious. I like to ask questions. I like to have really engaging discussions. And because of that, I'm pretty high, very high, but I'm pretty high on openness. And that would make me, I would assume that because I play JRPGs and enjoy, you know, exploring in JRPGs, you know, that would also correlate with me, while not exactly correlating with the idea of many LGBTQ people who've enjoyed Undertale to also just happen to be that as well.
It's all about painting outside the lines, which is probably why it also correlates highly to the enjoyment of sandboxes like Minecraft and games with hefty customization
I don't like Minecraft.
Monster Hunter World.
I don't see any fun
Conscientiousness was
of
slightly
Minecraft.
mapped to the mastery
I did try Monster
achievement
Hunter World,
cluster,
though.
which
It was okay.
makes sense. Highly conscientious folks are preparers, strategizers, task-oriented schedule followers that likely find challenging strategy games like Advanced Wars and XCOM to be just the right scritch to their itch. The correlation here wasn't as strong as the others, but it may shine a little light on the type of people that enjoy finding all of the achievements. Again, that highly conscientious detail and task-oriented nature probably lends itself to finding some pleasure in unlocking all the achievements and getting all of the collectibles. Okay, I'm gonna come up for air now, that was a lot of big words. Couple things to note. The correlations here are significant, and they were insightful, but they aren't exactly high, meaning that this only gives us a glimpse into what is usually the case, but is certainly not universal truths. After all, you may be the most detail-oriented, conscientious person on Earth, and yet hate playing strategy games because your personality ruins them. Maybe they just come off as a chore and you have too many of those in real life, so you'd rather unwind with something relaxing. Like I said earlier, fat grain of salt. If episode 1 and psychology studies have taught me anything, it's that
there's always a bigger fish.
And there is always an exception. But I do think that there is a lot of
There's a bigger fish.
There's always a
and
bigger
there is
fish.
always an exception.
Yeah, always an exception. Absolutely. There are no absolutes when it comes to personality, for sure. I played Deep Nest without feeling anything different. I don't know what Deep Nest is, but okay.
But I do think that there is a lot of truth in these correlations. After all, if you're super introverted, you likely would enjoy playing alone. If you're high in openness, the stranger and more novel a world is, the more likely you are to really want to sink your teeth into it. Which, by the way, this kind of supports my personal theory of why when a new game trailer drops, you may find yourself going, not for me, whereas your buddy gets hype and just tosses it on their mountain of the backlog because they want to play it all. High openness is great and all, but if everything new is appealing, RIP to your buddy's wallet and free time.
Yep.
Or maybe you're the buddy. I'm the buddy. My backlog is bigger than my future. For what it's worth, my take on how who we are affects what we play has to do with personality reinforcement. We seek out not just games, but media in general that reflects our personality. Like Dr. Yee mentioned in the closing statements of this study, games are often stereotyped as escapist fantasies so that we can be who we're not. But we may in fact play them to better experience who we truly are, how we actually tick, and better understand our own identities. A few studies gathered in a meta-analysis by NCBI reveals that our music and television consumption is often for purposes of identity management, emotional regulation, and companionship, especially in younger people. Which leads me to believe that in a lot of ways, gaming may influence our personality in the same way personality affects our gaming. Personality may in fact be the original spark that triggers our interest, but I think over time they act upon each other back and forth. Games may serve as a mirror that reveals what we do and don't enjoy, and what we do and don't identify with, which, especially in our earlier years, might structure who we are. Personality often runs into the nature versus nurture debate, which is almost always both when it comes to most psychology topics.
That's great.
Genetics certainly plays a part in personality, as has been shown in studies with twins. In fact, based on this twin study, genetic influence on the big 5 traits were all estimated to be around 50%, which means that personality is likely half formed by our genes and half by our experiences. So the reason you keep
Makes
coming
sense.
back to fighting games may be because you are highly extroverted, but it may also be because your first gaming experience as a kid was Melee.
100% agree with this. I 100% agree with this. My interest in fighting games has nothing to do with me being extroverted, because actually, plot twist, I'm not actually extroverted. I'm actually very introverted. I like being alone, and I need a lot of time to recover from streaming. So I'm often found alone. I enjoy being alone. I can entertain myself very, very easily, and I'm not extroverted. I just left my house for the first time today. I left my doorstep for the first time in 2 weeks, and I do this literally every 2 weeks to go do my laundry. I literally don't leave my doorstep because I work from home. So like I'm very good at I'm very, very introverted. But the reason why this guy makes a good point, because like I don't play fighting games because I'm extroverted and like the competition. I play fighting games because one of my first gaming experiences was playing Street Fighter 2 for the SNES. So that was the first game that really captured my interest. It was super fascinating to me, and I was caught. And that's why I keep going back to fighting games. But very, very good point made. Like as you said, like there are many like not everything is going to line up the way like it's not going to line up the way that we would expect it to. There's going to be exceptions.
It may not be as black and white as your personality affecting what you play. It may go both ways. A couple of stray thoughts before we pull this video out of the oven. Age is also a huge factor. Some research presented in 2003 suggests that as we age, our personality shifts. Conscientiousness and agreeableness tends to go up through your 20s, and openness tends to decline. Meaning for a lot of people, you really may find yourself narrowing these genres you play. Maybe not everything new will be quite as appealing. Which I think kind of supports the whole notion of identity management and formation in your early years, though I could just be seeing what I want to see with that. There are also other models of gaming motivations than Yee's that you might want to consider. Bartle's player types, for example, plots you as one of 4 different player types, depending on if you tend to be more interested in the world versus other players, and acting upon those things, or interacting with them. Jason Vanderberg's Domains of Play model may also be worth checking out. Ultimately, it is extremely difficult to pin down just what exactly the relationship between our personalities and our game preferences is. It could be something we just can't quite grasp yet, and the research I've gathered for you today only reveals the tip of the iceberg. Then again, it could all be white noise, grasping at the wind. Small tendencies that reveal more about what we think is true than what is actually the case. But what it most certainly is delicious food for thought. If you take away anything from this video, know that there is no right or wrong personality type, just like there is no right or wrong game preference. We're all different and all seek what fulfills us. Above all, I hope that this research encourages you to make a diligent effort to understand your personality and not try to correct it. It's often said that you should just be yourself, but I know from experience that's not such a simple task. I think a better piece of advice would be get to know yourself. Take the time to learn who you are, pay attention to what makes you smile, and don't be ashamed of it. Games have always helped me do that, and regardless of how your personality truly affects what you play, I think as long as you're enjoying yourself, it doesn't really matter, does it?
Yeah, that was a good video. Okay, there's more.
Howdy, partner. Thank you so much for watching today. You could have watched any video in the world, but you're here with me, and I appreciate that. I hope you got something of value out of this, and hey, if you want more videos on personality, like how it might affect your in-game decision-making or how quickly you find yourself getting tilted, let me know by liking the video, sharing with a friend, or subscribing if you haven't already done so already. And if you'd like to pick that next topic, then you should join my dear friends over on Patreon who made this video possible and voted for this topic. Shout out to this month's featured patrons: Lucas Calbertot, Daniel King, Genji, Amro, Moniker Epsilon, Ruth Ann French, Ganshroy, and Carlin Cruz. If you'd like to pick a future topic, be a future featured patron, or simply have your name appear in the ending scroll like you see here, click that orange link. Much love, my friends. Go take Dr. Yee's survey, and until next time, have yourself a damn good one.
Yeah, that was a great video. So,
Hello, I'm some people. Nice to meet you. Hello, motherfucker.
okay, that's good. Oh, that was good. That was good. All right, all right. Yeah, that was a good video. That was pretty good. I wouldn't say that I learned anything particularly like new from that video. But I did in fact, you know, like I did certainly like was able to I was a lot of the stuff that I've read has reinforced my thoughts about this sort of thing, and just learning more about it has been super interesting to me. It's very difficult to internalize a lot of this knowledge personally, and that's largely because I haven't really written any of it down. I've only read it, so you know it's pretty proven that if you write things down, you're more likely to remember them. So that's on me actually, but just being able to understand why we do certain things and why we enjoy the kind of games that we play and what makes us different from each other, as I think really interesting. I think it's really fascinating, and I think the correlation between games and our personalities may not be very strong as we did learn today. That was one of the things that I learned today. Though that may be the case, you know, at the end of the day, as long as we're having fun playing the games that we play, whether there's a correlation or not between our personality traits, you know, as long as we're having fun with it, you know, I think that's great. And I know in my case, I have a pretty good feeling that my my personality is kind of all over the place. I know that I seemingly change a lot based on the situations that I find myself in, and I find it I find it very cool to know that perhaps, you know, there may be a reason why I was so engrossed in Nier Automata, and yet I still enjoy games like chess. Why I can play games like Street Fighter V. Well, yeah. You know, I guess if you just look at those three games, like Nier has very, very high energy combat. So the combat and the strategic methodology behind dodging and attacking is very, very appealing to me. That's very, very fun for me. And then chess is also strategy geared, and also fighting games is also strategy geared. So I guess they all correlate with strategy, which could then correlate with my conscientiousness being fairly high. But you know what? Maybe we should take the test. Maybe we should take the test.